Have you ever stopped to think that the voice in your head might not be you? That constant inner dialogue, the doubts, the self-criticism. What if I told you that none of it actually defines who you are? Most people go through life believing every thought that pops into their mind, never questioning it. But today you're going to learn how to break free from that cycle and finally take control. If you've ever felt trapped by your own overthinking or caught in a loop of negative thoughts, this video will completely change the way you see your mind. So hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and let's dive into a perspective shift that might just transform your entire life. Your mind is a thought-producing machine, constantly generating ideas, worries, and inner dialogues. But have you ever noticed how these thoughts seem to have a voice? Your voice. This endless stream of mental noise is what we call mental chatter. It feels like you because it uses your own memories, fears, and inner speech. But here's the big question. Just because you hear a thought, does that mean it's truly you? The problem arises when people mistake this mental chatter for their actual identity. If your mind says you're not good enough, you might take it as an undeniable truth. But who decided that? Was it really you or just a random thought popping into your head? The reality is that much of what goes through your mind is just echoes of past experiences, external influences, and conditioned beliefs. And the moment you realize this, you begin to see that you don't have to accept everything your mind tells you. Think of your mind as a constantly playing radio station. If you don't know how to switch channels, you'll be stuck listening to whatever it broadcasts, whether it's uplifting or destructive. But what if I told you that you are not the voice on the radio, you're the one listening? The first step to freeing yourself from mental chatter is realizing that these thoughts do not define you. They simply exist. But if this mental noise isn't you, then who are you really? That's where things start to get interesting. If thoughts just appear in your mind, where do they come from? Most people assume they have full control over what they think, but the truth is quite different. Your brain is like an antenna, picking up signals from various sources, memories, past experiences, external influences, and even unconscious emotions. Have you ever had a random thought pop into your head? A sudden fear, or even a song playing in your mind for no reason? That's because not every thought is a conscious choice. The problem begins when you take responsibility for every thought that arises. If a negative thought appears, many people feel guilty, as if they're bad for even thinking it. But here's the truth. A thought does not define you. Only your reaction to it does. For example, if your mind says, "What if everything goes wrong?" you can either panic or simply recognize it as just another random mental event, no different from background noise on a busy street. And if I told you that most of your thoughts aren't even yours in the deepest sense? Many of them come from the culture you were raised in, your family's beliefs, or the content you consume daily. Your mind absorbs all of this and spits it back out in random ways throughout the day. But do you have to believe everything that appears in your head? The answer is no. If you're not the creator of every thought that pops into your mind, then who are you really? That's the key to breaking free from this automatic cycle, and the answer might just change the way you see your own mind forever. Now that you understand that not every thought is yours, the big question is, why do they feel so real? The problem arises when you identify with your thoughts. If your mind says, "I'm a failure," and you believe it, that thought becomes your reality. But here's the trap. This is just a story your mind is telling, not an absolute truth. Have you ever noticed how a single thought can shift your emotions instantly? That's the power of identification. The mind loves labels. I'm anxious, I'm bad at maths, I'm not good with people. But who decided those things were true? Maybe it was a childhood experience, a comment someone made, or an unfair comparison to others. When you fuse with these mental labels, you start living as if they're set in stone, never questioning whether they're even accurate. Identifying with the mind keeps people stuck in limiting patterns, believing they have no power to change. Imagine your mind as a movie screen where thoughts are just films being projected. You can either get lost in the story, feeling every emotion as if it's real, or you can step back and simply watch. People who identify with their thoughts live inside the movies, believing every scene is reality. But those who wake up realize they can leave the theater anytime they want. If your mind isn't truly you, then who are you beyond it? That's the real secret to breaking free. But how do you actually observe your thoughts without being controlled by them? The key to freeing yourself from mental chatter isn't to fight your thoughts. It's to observe them without getting caught up in them. Think of your mind like the sky and your thoughts like clouds. Some are light and pass quickly, while others are dark and heavy. But no matter what, the sky itself remains untouched. The problem arises when, instead of simply watching the clouds float by, you try to hold on to them, or even build a house on top of them. One powerful technique to create distance from your thoughts is to give your inner voice a name. Call it the critic, radio negative, or something humorous. When a thought pops up, say, "Oh look, radio negative is broadcasting again." This simple trick immediately separates you from the thought, making it less powerful. The moment you recognize that a thought is just a thought and not an ultimate truth, its grip on you weakens. Another way to observe thoughts without attachment is through meditation. But don't worry, you don't have to sit like a monk on a mountain. Just take a few minutes a day to sit quietly and watch your thoughts pass by without reacting to them. Imagine yourself as a spectator at a parade where thoughts march in front of you, but you don't have to jump onto any of the floats. The more you practice, the more you realize that you have the ability to choose where to place your attention. When you see that thoughts are not commands but just mental events, everything changes. But what happens when you start breaking free from this identification? That's when something incredible emerges, a deep, unshakable inner stillness. Now that you know how to observe your thoughts without getting attached, it's time to actively weaken mental chatter. Your mind thrives on constant stimulation, scrolling through social media, jumping from one thought to another, filling every quiet moment with noise. But one of the most powerful ways to regain control is by creating intentional silence. Try spending a few minutes each day without any distractions. No phone, no TV, no conversations. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but over time you'll start noticing a deeper awareness beneath all the mental noise. Another game-changing practice is journaling. Grab a notebook and write down everything going through your mind. No filters, no structure, just pure mental download. This is like a mind detox, helping you get your thoughts out of your head and onto paper. Many times when you see your thoughts written down, you realize how irrational or repetitive they are. You also begin to notice patterns in how your mind operates, which gives you the power to change them. What you consume daily also affects your mental chatter. Have you ever noticed how after a day of watching negative news or doom scrolling on social media, your mind feels overloaded? If your thoughts are already noisy, adding external chaos only makes it worse. Try an experiment. For one day, consume only positive, insightful content. Books that expand your perspective, inspiring videos, or deep conversations. You'll be amazed at how much clearer your mind feels. Each small action to reduce mental noise builds momentum. Over time, your mind loses its grip on you, and something incredible happens. An inner stillness starts to take shape. But this stillness isn't emptiness. It's full of awareness, power, and presence. And that leads us to something even deeper. In a world filled with distractions, few people ever experience true inner silence. But make no mistake, inner silence isn't the absence of thoughts. It's a state where thoughts may come and go, but they no longer control you. Imagine being in the middle of a chaotic storm, yet standing in a place so still that the chaos doesn't touch you. This kind of inner peace isn't just a nice idea, it's a real, practical state that changes the way you experience life. One of the simplest ways to tap into this silence is conscious breathing. It may sound too simple to be effective, but try this. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and fully feel the air moving in and out. For those few seconds, your mind has no space for unnecessary noise. The more you practice this throughout the day, the more you create small gaps in your mental chatter, gaps where clarity and presence emerge. Another powerful technique is noticing moments of no thought. Have you ever been so immersed in a sunset, a piece of music, or an activity that your mind just went silent? Those moments prove that your thoughts are not essential to your existence. In those instances, you're not thinking, you're just being. That's mindfulness in its purest form, being so present that thoughts lose their grip on you. Inner silence is not just peaceful, it's a gateway to something even greater. When you begin to disconnect from the noise, a profound question starts to arise. If I'm not my thoughts, then who am I? If you are not your thoughts, your beliefs, or your past experiences, then who are you? This is the most powerful question you can ask yourself. Most people spend their entire lives identifying with labels. I'm anxious, I'm shy, I'm always busy, without realizing that these are just mental narratives, not their true essence. But the reality is, you are something far greater than the voice in your head. You are the one observing it. Rebuilding your identity means consciously choosing what to believe about yourself. Instead of automatically accepting every thought that pops up, start questioning, does this truly define me, or is it just an old mental program? If your mind says, I'm not good enough, ask yourself, who told me that? Based on what? Simply challenging these thoughts already weakens their power. You can rewrite your story at any moment. A powerful way to reconstruct your identity is by using intentional affirmations, but not in a superficial way. It's not just about repeating positive phrases, it's about aligning your actions with them. If you want to become a confident person, don't just say it. Take small daily actions that a confident person would take. If you want to be calm and present, practice mindful moments throughout the day. Your new identity isn't built through thoughts alone, but through conscious action. The moment you realize that you are not your mind's chatter, an entirely new level of freedom opens up. Instead of being controlled by thoughts, you become the one choosing which thoughts to entertain and which to let go. And now, with this new awareness, the real question is, what will you do with this power? Now that you know the voice in your head isn't you, the real question is, what will you do with this awareness? Will you keep letting your mind run the show, or will you start taking control? The truth is, you have a choice. You can either stay trapped in old thought patterns, or begin to question, observe, and consciously decide what to believe. The power is in your hands. So tell me in the comments, what's one recurring thought that holds you back? And what's one thing you'll start doing today to change your relationship with your mind? Let's talk about it. And of course, if this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more content like this. See you in the next one.